Hello everyone, welcome to the channel Sluggers Blue for your CAD VRC preparation. In this session, in today's video, we'll be continuing with the same RC that we had taken up in the first part of the session. This RC was asked in your CAD exam in 2018, and the second slot, I have titled the RC as Illusions of Technology, 535 words for 5 questions, slightly lengthy. In this part, this is the second part where I'll be taking you through the questions. We'll be discussing the questions of the RC. The passage itself has been explained in the first part of the videos. If you've not watched that part, or if you have not attempted the passages yet, you can find the links to both the first part of the session, the first video, as well as the link to attempt the passage in the description of this video. Okay, so let's start. Okay, starting with the first question. According to the author, service delivery in Indian education can be improved in all of the following ways except through. So right, so again we have a triple TF scenario. 3 of the 4 options will be ones which the author will relate to points that the author has mentioned, via which service delivery in the Indian education system can be improved. And one of them will not be a point, will be a point that the author has not mentioned, or with respect to service delivery, with respect to improving service delivery in Indian education, and that will be your answer. Okay, so coming to question option A, it says access to information on the quality of teaching. Yes, that's something the author mentions towards the end of the paragraph, end of the passage. He says the first step to being part of the solution is to create performance information accessible to those outside of the government. So that's correct. You can, and hence because this is true, this can be eliminated. Okay. Next, option B, elimination of government involvement. Now, yes, the options of this question have been formulated in a very extremely nuanced manner, and this is a really good trap, because all the discussion that the author has had on the topic of autonomy, on the topic of providing freedom and autonomy to the service providers, allow them some discretion to with respect to the way they want to carry out their job, as the author talks about here, right? He says that is to hire teachers who want to teach and let them teach, expressing their professionalism and vocation as a teacher through autonomy in the classroom. So it almost implies that you're trying to reduce government's involvement here, right? And this option is quite near to that. It says elimination of government involvement, but that's exactly where it goes wrong. Instead of reducing it takes it saying reducing government involvement, or more appropriately saying that providing more autonomy to the service providers. It takes it to the extreme. It says that elimination of government involvement, and that's something that the author has not talked about anywhere. So this will be false, and hence can be an answer to a question. That depends on what we come across in the other options. Let's check them out. Next, option C, it says recruitment of motivated teachers. Yes, the author has talked about that. Option C here. He says that the key is to hire teachers who want to teach. So yes, recruit motivated teachers. So this is totally called for. See guys, the point of reference that is marked in red, that is for this second option, elimination of government involvement, from where one might have mistakenly assumed this to be true. That's why I've marked this point of the earlier point. This is the red one is the point of reference for option B, from where someone may have mistakenly assumed that the author is trying to imply elimination. No, he's not trying to imply elimination. He's trying to imply autonomy. That's it. Basically, not force people who don't want to teach. Okay, so yeah. Anyhow, option C is clearly mentioned and hence is true and can be eliminated quite easily with a capital E. Coming to option D, use of technology. Now, the people, the viewers who eliminated the second option by this point of reference, that the author has talked about reducing government involvement and confusing that with elimination. If those who may have eliminated this, in most of the cases they would have gone for this option. And because the author seems to be slightly at least actually he's not biased against technology, he just feels that technology can work better as a facilitator and not the determining factor here. Okay, so he's not said that the use of technology cannot improve. In fact, he says that it can facilitate. The point of reference is here. He says technology can certainly facilitate. So yes, it can be improved by technology. It's just that he doesn't think that technology is the one determining factor that can have the maximum impact here. according to him, that data manufacturer is something else. Okay, so no, this is you won't select this. This is not false. This is true as per the author. According to the author, technology can facilitate, and hence use of technology can improve the service delivery. Okay, so you'll mark this as true and will eliminate it thus, and hence your correct answer will obviously be option B, right? So which is certainly false. So all right. Okay, so coming to question number 2, the stem here says, in the context of the passage, we can infer that the title "Bandit on a Corpse" suggests that the point of reference has been taken from here, where the author has made a point. In this paragraph, the author basically made a point that just deploying top-down accountability by use of technology is not going to help resolve the problem of these government services, right? And then he cites this study, which is titled as "Bandit on a Corpse." So "Bandit on a Corpse" is basically a reference to an idea where a very difficult problem, okay, is being where one is trying to create solve an extremely difficult problem uh, by providing a solution that is almost facetious, right? Almost like does not really address the actual problem. It's just on the surface level, right? So with that, let's look at the options. The first one says the nurses attended the clinics, but the clinics were ill-equipped. So what the author means, we can infer from "Bandit on the Corpse" is that nurses attended the clinics, but the clinics were ill-equipped. No, the author's point was not about how well or badly equipped the clinics were. The author's point was that, well, you're trying to bring in technological intervention here, monitoring systems here, but that's anyways not the problem. The main problem is with the motivation here, and that's what you should be solving for, right? So that's Band-Aid on a corpse. So you're not trying to solve the actual problem. You're just focused on something else that's not so helpful. So and the actual problem was not about equipment, right? So definitely you can eliminate this option. Next, option B, the clinics were better funded, but performance monitoring did not result in any improvement. So yeah, performance monitoring did not result in any improvement. Part is something that we can agree with, but nowhere does the author see that the clinics were better funded. Okay, and no discussion has been had on this related to this idea that how better or less not so better funded the clinics were. And moreover, it's like you'll have to make a lot of assumptions to make this somehow relate with Band-Aid on a corpse. The clinics were better funded, so how can that be Band-Aid on a corpse? That so they were better funded, so that was Band-Aids? No, it really requires a lot of huge stretch of imagination and a lot of assumptions here, and then anyways this is not given anywhere in the passage. So this point, the earlier point, better funded wala. The later part is something that we can agree with, but anyways the complete option has to be correct for us not to eliminate it, right? So we are going to eliminate this. Coming to option number 3, the nurses who attended the clinics were too poorly trained to provide appropriate medical care. Now, as much as this comes quite close, okay, but this is still not exactly what we are looking for in an answer. See, guys, the author's contention was that the main problem is not skill or training. The main problem is the motivation when it comes to the ground level service providers, right? It's not training, and this option focuses on training. This option says that the main problem was training, and like this was just monitoring, and hence it did not help. No, that's a distortion here. So you'll eliminate this with a capital E again. Next, the electronic monitoring system was a superficial solution to a serious problem. So now this option, I have a reservation with this option as well, and the reservation is that it is slightly low resolution, but it is at least accurate. It is accurate because the electronic monitoring system was actually a superficial solution to a serious problem. The option hasn't gone into the depths of what the serious problem was, that of motivation, and superficial solution was, it mentions the superficial solution, so that's okay, that's all right. So among the given options that we have here, this might seem low resolution, but it is definitely accurate and better among the rest of the among the 4 options. So we'll select this with a capital S and move on to the next one. Coming to question number 3, the stem of the question says the author questions the use of monitoring systems and services that involve face-to-face interaction between service providers and clients, because such systems, option A, Do not improve services that need committed service providers. That seems likely, right? The author's contention has been that deploy as much tech as you want, as long as you don't improve the motivations of the people at the ground level of the service providers, it's not going to change anything, right? So these deployment of these monitoring systems to services that involve face-to-face interaction, not improve services that need committed service providers. So there is the lack of commitment there, and they anyways are not able to address it, and hence they do not improve the services. So this seems to make sense. We'll mark it as a small s at least for now, and then check the other options. Option B says are ineffective because they are managed by the government. The author has not really talked about how about the differential effectiveness of systems basis the bodies that they are managed by. Like if they are managed by government, then they are not efficient. Then if they are managed by private, then they are probably more efficient. Okay, now if by chance some of you drew drew this inference from this line, the part where the author talks about how in there's a Delhi medical care case, right? He says that yeah, there's a study of medical care in Delhi found that even though providers in public sector had much better skills in private sector providers, their provision of care in actual practice was much worse. So although this compares the public and the private sector together, juxtaposes them both, but the point of differentiation here is not that one is public and the other is private. The point of differentiation here is that one is motivated and the other is not motivated. That's what he's trying to say here. Okay, so please, I hope no one fell for this just because of this point of reference. So the second option can be eliminated very easily. Next, improve the skills. Do not improve the skills, because such systems improve the skills but do not increase the motivation of the service providers. So again, now the second part of the option where it says do not increase the motivation of service providers, we are good with that, no problem with that. Okay, but the deployment of these monitoring system improves their skills is something that the author has again not talked about anywhere. So like we can't make that assumption, and hence can be eliminated with the capital E. Coming to option D, are not as effective in the public sector as they are in the private sector. Are not as effective in the public sector as they are in the private sector. Are not as effective in the public sector. No, the author hasn't again not compared uh, the monitoring systems in two different setups. Okay, they are effective here, but they are not effective. He has not done any differential comparison on that basis of the monitoring systems, and hence you can also eliminate this option quite easily with a capital E. Okay, your correct answer will here be definitely option A. Okay, coming to question number 4. The main purpose of the passage is to, first option, argue that some types of services can be improved by providing independence and requiring accountability. Yes, those are exactly the 2 points that the author has mentioned. They have just been in one case paraphrased. The option has replaced the word autonomy with providing independence. That expression, that's it. Rest of it is that's exactly what the author wants to convey, that some types of services, government services here, can be improved by providing independence and requiring accountability. So this is a very good candidate for a selection. Smallest slash capitalist. Next one. Option B says analyze the shortcomings of government appointed nurses and their management through technology. Analyze the shortcomings of government appointed nurses. And we're talking about the main purpose. The government nurses, and moreover government appointed nurses, like they have been talked about in only as part of one study, and even in that case they are the auxiliary nurse, midwives, ANMs, and that study has been given just as an example. It's not the core point. The core discussion is not about the shortcomings of just the government appointed nurses. The core discussion is about how the implementation oriented services in public sector, these public sector units, how they can be improved, and what are the main factor that plays a role so far as the delivery quality of these services is concerned. So no, this is definitely not the answer. This can be eliminated with a capital E. Option C, critique the government's involvement in educational activities and other implementation intensive services. Critique the government's involvement in educational activities. Okay, the author has not really, the point of the author has not been about government's involvement in educational activities and other implementation intensive. So this option takes care of at least including all the examples. So it mentions implementation intensive services, so that takes care of all the whole gamut of services that the author has talked about, including educational activities. But the discussion is not, the focus of the discussion is not on government's involvement. The focus of the discussion is on how to improve the quality of delivery of these services. Now, if as part of that, you might want the government to provide more autonomy and hence be slightly less involved there. That's okay, but that's not the point. The government's involvement is not directly the core point here. Okay, so again, you can eliminate this with a capital D. Option D: find a solution to the problem of poor service delivery in education by examining different strategies. Find a solution to the problem of poor service delivery in education. Okay, find a solution. Now, once again, guys, the discussion has been about all sorts of implementation oriented services, right? He calls them implementation intensive services. It's not just limited to the poor service delivery in education. Yes, granted that he has used this example of education quite often in the later part, but again, it's very clear and unambiguously clear that the author's thrust has been more general in nature. Okay, it's been more like it's been more about the all services in general. And in fact, he also mentions that if we take in basic education, for instance, that means he's taking this example for instance to demonstrate a specific, his general idea in a specific context, just for explanatory purposes. Okay, so again, this will be eliminated with a capital E, and thus your answer will obviously be option A. Okay, coming to the next question. Okay, question number 5. The stem says, which of the following, if true, would undermine the passage's main argument, right? So we are supposed to look for the option that weakens or undermines the passage's main argument. Okay, so all right, let's start. Option 1, it says, if it were proven that increase in autonomy of service providers leads to an exponential increase in their work ethic and sense of responsibility. Well, that will not weaken the author's argument. It in fact strengthens part of the author's argument. Part of the author's argument is that, yeah, if you allow for more autonomy, like you should allow for autonomy and accountability, right? And hence, which should deliver results to you, right? And like that while solving the problem of motivation, right? So this in fact supports his argument, doesn't weaken his argument at all, supports part of his argument. So next, so yeah, option A can be eliminated, okay, eliminated, because we're looking for the option that weakens the argument. If it were proven that service providers in the private sector have better skills than those in the public sector, if it were proven that service providers in the private sector, no, guys, see, now what might have happened in many cases is that students may have looked at this particular case study of Delhi, study of medical care in Delhi, found that many providers, even though providers in the public sector were more skilled than the private sector providers, still the services were better in the private sector. So it might seem like that option B debunks the use of this example, and probably to some extent, yes, it does render the use of this example objectionable at least. But please note, what are we supposed to find here? We're supposed to find the option that undermines the passage's main argument. Just rendering a particular example not directly useful does not undermine the whole argument. The author has not based his complete argument related to the motivation of service providers on just this singular example, right? So just addressing this one example will not necessarily undermine the author's argument. And even if you go check the example, even if you, let's say, assume that okay, private sectors, the skill of service providers in private sector is more than those of public sector, the option does it still does not necessarily mean that the performance of the better performance of private sector can be attributed to the better skill of the private sector service providers. You can't necessarily say that. All you can say that is, well, the author cannot use this example because skill might be involved. Okay, that's all you can say. And hence it does not. It just makes the use of this example objectionable. It does not undermine the author's main argument. Okay. All right. The passage's main argument. Coming to the next option, empowerment of service providers leads to increased complacency and rigged performance results. Now, the question setter has really played around with the words here. What might have happened is that many learners may have, because of the word empowerment, they might have gone, they might have been directed to the wrong point of reference. Okay, where the author has said that as long as system empowers providers over citizens, technology is irrelevant. Like it's not gonna help. So empowering providers over citizens is going to be detrimental, right? That's what the author meant. And this option says that empowerment of service providers leads to increased complacency and rigged performance results. And hence, many learners, many students might have found this option to be completely in line with the passage and hence might have eliminated this option. But guys, no, please understand that system empowering providers over citizens. Okay, I'm going to underline this. System empowering, since system empowers providers over citizens, is different from empowerment of service providers in general. Empowerment of service providers does not necessarily mean that the service providers are being empowered over the citizens. Okay, so this option in fact relates to a different point of reference where the author says the key is to hire teachers who want to teach and let them teach. This is the empowerment that the author is talking about. By this, the author actually refers to autonomy. Okay, this is actually a reference to autonomy and not to the empower word that has been used here in the earlier point of reference. That's not the relevant point of reference. This is not the relevant point of reference for this option. Okay, so by this empowerment refers, because why does this refer to this and why does it not refer to that? Because when you just talk about empowerment to service providers, you cannot assume anything extra. It has to be like empowerment to service providers. Okay, so it has to refer to, it is more likely to refer to autonomy. But if you want to talk about, if you want to already add to the idea, if you want to talk about empowerment of providers over citizens, then you need to mention that it is not just empowerment, it is rather empowering providers over citizens, giving the providers an upper hand over the citizens. Okay, so if it is mentioned in a general way, then it has to be taken in a general way, for which the correct point of reference will be this. Okay, so, and hence it relates to autonomy. So according to the passage, autonomy should lead to positive results, right? So this is an answer to the problem according to the author. But the option, what does the option say? Empowerment of service providers, that this autonomy leads to increased complacency and rich performance results. That means autonomy is actually turning out to be detrimental here, right? And hence that is definitely something that will weaken the passage's main argument, right? Autonomy is part of the passage's main argument and hence it will weaken the passage's main arguments. So this can be the answer, capital S. Okay, see, the key here was to not get confused to not end up relating this empowerment word with the word empower in the passage. And then it might have happened with many of the learners, many of you guys who are watching this. Just ensure that it doesn't happen again, right? It is very likely that many learners may have fallen for this for the first time, but don't let it happen for the second time. Let's come to the next one. If absolute instead of moderate technological surveillance is exercised over the performance of service providers, okay, you can't weaken an argument that has not been made. Okay, the author has not made any argument related to the absolute and moderate technological surveillance. He has not said that, well, if moderate technological surveillance does not really help, but absolute might, and hence, but still I'm not going to provide that as a solution. And then you can come up and say, okay, now let's use absolute, and hence I've weakened your argument. No, it doesn't work that way. The author has made no such point related to absolute or moderate technological surveillance differential deployment of technological surveillance, and hence if you talk about something that he has not talked about, you cannot it's very unlikely that you weaken the argument. And if you still want to weaken, if you still want to somehow make a connection where this option weakens the argument, we'll have to make a really long series of assumptions to do that, which again does not make sense. Okay, so you can eliminate this with a capital E. Your correct answer here will be option C. Okay. Okay, coming to the vocabulary section, the way we'll go about this is you have been provided the passage along with some highlighted words, which I figured some of you may have found challenging. And on the right side, the meaning of those respective
Okay,
words.
guys.
So you
So
can
coming to the
check the word in
vocabulary
its
part.
context in the
Now,
as
see
part
the
of
way we
its
go
sentence, and
about
then
the
check
vocabulary so far as the
refer to its meaning
anthology sessions
to
are
get a better
concerned.
understanding of that. Now, the
I
meanings
I'm not
provided here
gonna
are
read out
primarily I've tried
uh,
to keep them
the meaning and discuss
contextual.
the meaning of each and
The
every word
general
which has
meaning
been
of a word
marked here,
and its contextual meaning are
because
usually the
we'll
same, but
be we'll
in
have a
cases where there
separate
might
course
have been
which
a
will be
slight difference,
dedicated to
we have
vocabulary
stuck with
building,
the
a series of
contextual meaning.
separate courses in
Okay,
fact.
and the
So
way
so
you'll want to
and
go
to
about
keep
this
these sessions
is
short,
pause the video
we
and
will what
go
I'm
for it,
gonna do
because
is
I'm not going
just
to
gonna
go through.
list
I don't plan to go through each
mark
and
the
every
words
word
which
here,
I figured that
because we'll
you may
anyways
have
have
found,
other
some of you may
separate
have found
vocabulary
challenging,
sessions
and then
or courses
provide
to take care of vocabulary. All right.
the
So
contextual meaning of those words. Yeah. Okay. So yes, that's how we're gonna go about vocabulary. What you can do is you can simply pause the video here, go through the word in its context, in the where as part of the sentence where it occurs, read that, and then read the meaning of the sentence. That's as simple as that, right? So you can do that, and I'm gonna move on to the next part.
okay, guys, coming to the analysis and readings part, the first parameter that we'll discuss is the genre. Now, the genre is basically the source, the domain of the source from where the passage has been taken. It can be psychology, economics, management, science, technology, or politics, governance, culture, social sciences, history, many of them. So, and why is it relevant? Why is it relevant to for me to tell you what genre the passage was from? Because, guys, there is utility. There's some utility here, because let's suppose you faced some difficulty while reading this particular passage in terms of the terminology or in terms of the ideas that were discussed here. It will definitely benefit you if you can at least read 2 to 3 to 4 articles from this particular genre. That will increase your familiarity, at least to some extent. Especially if you found it really difficult, you should definitely read at least a couple of or 2 or 3 articles from the genre. Okay, if you found it easy, that's all right. But if you found it difficult, that means there is something really for you to gain there. Okay, you really need to gain some familiarity in that genre. All right, that's the first parameter. Second parameter, readability. Readability is with respect to the passage, not the RC. When I say RC, I am talking about the passage as well as the questions. When I say passage, we're just talking about the passage. Readability score, which is mentioned here, it is about this. It scores the passage. It basically tells you how easy or difficult was the passage to comprehend. And the way it can help you is, if you figure that for a particular genre, uh, if you figure that generally your understanding or your scores, your accuracy goes really low whenever the readability of the passage is quite high, you can definitely benefit from exposing yourself to material that is more dense, that is more difficult to understand, that has a higher level of readability, that has higher score of readability, right? So yeah, so that's one way in which you can factor in this insight, this takeaway. Next, length of the passage. The length of the passage, as I always say, should always be seen in terms of not just words, but rather words per question. The number of words you're required to read to answer one question of the passage. For CAT, this is usually around 100 words per question. Again, if you let's suppose you find your accuracy to be going down when you encounter passages which are lengthy. Uh, in that case, you might want to get more practice with respect with the lengthy passages, right, which offer less questions per word, or for which you have to read where you have to read more number of words per question. So yeah, that's passage length. Idle time, yes, idle time would be. So I've also mentioned the idle time to read the passage here. This is the maximum amount of time that you should take. If it is less than this, that's good, as so far as it doesn't hamper your comprehension. And the idle time for maximum amount of time that you should take for solving the questions here, right? This is the total idle time for solving the passage. Uh, and again, this is with respect to the time that you'd be expected to solve this in your exam conditions on the D-Day, right? When you're practicing, it makes sense to initially when you're just starting your preparation, it makes sense to go gradually. Don't try to speed things up there, because speed always follows accuracy. It's never the other way around. Accuracy never follows speed. Speed follows accuracy. Once your accuracy goes really up, once you start getting more confident, that's when you can increase your speed. Okay. All right. Next, So what I've also done here is with every passage, I'm going to provide you a couple of articles, and preferably by the same author, at least, or if not, at least in the same genre, right? So which will give you some familiarity in terms of if you face difficulty again, as I said, in the genre of reading, you can definitely go and check out these articles. The link for these articles have been provided in the provided in the description of the video, so you can check that out. Okay, yeah. So that's about the analysis and reading part. Okay, now for those of you who are watching, who might be watching one of these videos for the first time, I'll briefly explain to you the structure of these sessions of this course. Okay, so now guys, every single session caters to one RC, one reading comprehension, and is in turn split into two parts. The first part of the session is where I explain to you the passage of the RC in detail, and the second part of the session is where I take you through the questions of the RC. Okay, and yeah, so and 40 such sessions make up a course. 40 of these sessions make up a course which is titled as an anthology of RCs, which is directed towards your reading comprehension preparation for the CAT. All right, the current video that you're watching is the second part of this session, which caters to this particular RC. Okay, so guys, with this we are done with the fourth passage of your third genre, illusions of technology. And for those of you who have not watched the earlier passages of this genre or have not watched the earlier two genres, you can find all of the links to attempt these passages as well as watch the videos in the playlist of the channel. The playlist is titled as the course name, an anthology of RCs. So you go to the channels page and go to the playlist, and you can find that. Okay, the link to the playlist directly will also be available towards the end screen of the video, right? Okay. Okay, guys, so with this, we have come to the conclusion of the session. Now, for those of you who have not watched the first part of this particular RC, this particular session, you can click here on this card and it will take you on this video, and it will take you to the first part where you can go through the passage explainer to understand the passage in detail. And for those of you who want to watch the intro video of the course, you can click on this card here. It will take you to the intro video of the course. And for those and others again, and definitely if you like the session, do share it with others who might find it helpful and useful, and definitely do subscribe to the channel Sluggers Blue for your CAT VRZ preparation. All right, I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.